to another Optelec Enhanced Vision product demonstration. So today we have our Clearview C. Comes in two variations, this one being a 24-inch widescreen, but we also have a slightly more cost-effective 21.5-inch screen. The maximum magnification being 75 times on the 24-inch screen. The screen does move up and down and tilt forwards and backwards for easy control, and it does have a built-in XY table. It's quite a unique product because this one does have the arm on the left hand side of the screen as opposed to traditional video magnifiers, desktop video magnifiers being on the back. Because it's on the side of the screen, it means that the XY table does go back the furthest out of anything on the market. So basically you have a much larger surface area. You can effectively put a broadsheet newspaper underneath there quite easily without having to do multiple folds and sketches, etc. Does come in the portrait XY table, but a landscape version can be ordered separately if need be. All the controls for the Clearview C directly where my hand is. So it's nice and easy to operate this machine. In its basic format there is actually only a couple of buttons. One of the unique features about it though is this panel does come out, and it's intentionally it comes out. It does have rubber feet on there and magnets in there, so it snaps back into place. And the whole idea of a removable remote control, two purposes. One of the main ones is again going back to using a large broadsheet newspaper or a large working area. In the past, with the buttons being fixed onto the machine, it often meant that when you put reading material on top of it, it obscured the buttons, making it harder to control the magnification and the contrast. But obviously with the remote control, it means that you can be a respectable distance and still have full function of magnification and contrast, etc. But also the other good reason why we have separated it is that it does have a number of separate buttons on the side of the panel which are normally hidden away. So I'll go through the buttons. Basically you have a tactile on-off switch on the right hand side, and it's an orange button with a raised orange dot. So quite simply press and hold it to turn the machine off, and press it on again to obviously turn the machine back on. The main button is the control wheel, which allows magnification clockwise to increase, anti-clockwise to decrease. You do get a visual display of the magnification level, a bit like a volume on a TV, and obviously the higher you have it, the more white bars are filled in. The camera is auto-focusing, so you don't have to worry about manually focusing the camera. And the red light source built in at the back of it as well, which is obviously directly underneath, shining down. Inside that magnification ring is the high contrast button. So at the moment, obviously it's on natural colour, but by pressing it once, we can switch it to black on white, press it again, white on black, press it again, yellow on black, press it again, yellow on blue, and then back to natural colour. We can change the colours if need be to pretty much any configuration that you would need. And the last button in the basic setup is the square recess button for overview mode. So basically it's got a crosshairs on, and when you press it you will get a crosshair on the screen. So the crosshair on the screen sends it back to its lowest magnification, but then it allows you to manipulate the XY table to anywhere you need on the screen, and by pressing it again, the same button again, it zooms back in on that particular part of the document. Now that can be quite useful, so if you're reading a bank statement, let's say, so obviously the bank statement has your address on and the bank's address on, and you may need to get an account number or a telephone number, etc. So you can go to the top right hand part of the document, because that's where generally the bank details would be, and click on it and it'll zoom in on that particular area. And again, it doesn't really matter what magnification you can zoom in at, that will fast find it. And that, in the basic setup, is the control. So yeah, 3 buttons at maximum. Once you've turned the machine on, then you don't need to use that button again until you turn it off. The overview button, again, you might not necessarily need it all the time, but it's a nice function to have. And the main one being the magnification ring with your contrast. Once you're at the desired magnification and your preferred contrast, then actually the only other thing you need to do is just move the XY table left and right and up and down to read your text. But like I say, there is other functions. So if I turn the unit around, there is now another 5 buttons. Again, 3 of them are tactile to give you that feel of the buttons. So from the right hand side you have the pen button. That's got a razor white dot on it. If I press the pen, you'll see a pen image show up on the screen. That's basically turning the autofocus off. So now if I put my hand underneath, it won't refocus on my hand. It'll stay focused on the text. That is mainly for people who need to, for writing purposes, hence the pencil, the pen on there. So if you're wanting to write on there and you don't want the camera snapping in and out of focus from the pen, back to your hand, back to the paper, back to the pen again, then that pencil focus will turn the autofocus off. Pressing it again will send it back to autofocus. So obviously now it's focusing back on my hand again. The next button along is reading lines. So again, we can have it set for reading lines. So if you want to use a reading line on a particularly large document with a lot of text on there, then the reading line will let you do that. You can set it up so that it's not just purely a reading line. You can set it up for the letterbox. So again, for some people who have the visual fields issues where they get clutter, so they see too much text, and because they're seeing too much text, they can't separate words and sentences that easily, then the letterbox approach is a tried and trusted formula for working with that. And again, we can adjust the distance between a reading line. We can expand on it or compress it if need be. There is obviously the reading lines for the vertical as well. So there's various ways of adjusting text and magnification on that screen size. Okay, I'll leave this middle button just for the time being because that's the menu button. The next button along that side is a PC connection. So if I press it, well, at the moment all you have is X because there is no PC or laptop or tablet connected to it. But there is a spare HDMI port at the back of the machine. So the whole idea of that is if you connect a tablet or a laptop or a desktop PC or Apple Mac to it, by pressing that button the screen will dissolve and it'll be replaced by, well, a Windows desktop or your Android desktop or your Apple OS desktop. So you can use this as a dumb 24-inch screen if need be as a secondary screen, which is quite useful. Pressing the button again will revert you back to being a standard video magnifier. And the last button is a brightness button. So again, button on this side, tactile white raised dot. That just allows you to change the brightness setting if need be. Generally speaking though, it's set at 50% and most people are quite happy with the brightness setting on there. The centre button, which I sort of bypassed, again raised text on there, so this tactile is a menu button. That allows you, when you press it, to go into functions like brightness, to obviously change the brightness of the screen, change the colour settings, which we will go into. So at the moment, number 1 is black and white, number 2 is white on black, so on and so forth. But if we want to go into a particular one, and I can just select that colour and then change the colour scheme to pretty much whatever I want, even grayscale or none at all. If I select that, come back out of it, it means now we have natural colour, black and white, white and black, yellow and black, but you'll remember the blue and yellow which was there has now gone. So we don't need to have that on there anymore if need be. So effectively, if you just want black and white and natural colour, you can have it that way. Going back into the menu, bypassing the colours which I've just shown you, we now have a light. So again, with it being built-in LEDs, if you want to turn the light source off, then you certainly can do. And the standby, again, purely the standby of the machine, how long it stays on for after being inactive, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, or never, totally up to you. Same with the power settings, you can change the power settings on there. You can key lock these keys. So again, if you don't want to use the reading line or the PC connection button and you're just thinking there's too many buttons on there, I want to keep it simple, then we can key lock all these buttons off, so it doesn't matter if you press them or not, they simply won't work. We can reset the hardware back to factory default, look at information, firmware, etc. if we need to update the firmware in any way, and then of course exit. Generally speaking though, the menu button is only mostly used by our engineers for testing and stuff like that. It's not necessarily something that you need to use. Probably the only one you may use in there is maybe changing the settings on the colour scheme. And again, because the remote control can work both ways, it doesn't matter if you want it facing, so the keys, all those keys are facing towards you, then you can certainly do that. It doesn't really matter. The magnification wheel still works in the exact same way as if you turn it its traditional way. The only thing I didn't mention is at the bottom of the machine there is 2 tension bars. So these bars, when you push them together, the table is now locked. It won't move. That's quite useful if you want to do some writing or painting or needlework, and you obviously wouldn't want to write on a movable table, so you can lock the XY table into position. By sliding these tension bars apart, it means that you can now have more control of the XY table. So depending how close they are together is depending on how rigid the table is, and sliding them fully apart and on how loose the table is. Again, it's a personal choice. There is no right or wrong, it's totally up to the individual. So once again, this is our Clearview C, and in the next video I will be going into the speech aspect of it. But for now, this is just our standard Clearview C 24-inch. As usual, all our information is available on our website, and you can speak to us on our free phone telephone numbers. Thank you very much for your time.